Good morning, students. We are beginning with our same chapter, Principles of Inheritance and Variations. And as you remember, last time we were discussing about sex determination. In different type of organisms, different type of sex chromosomes are there. So, one small topic is left, that is sex determination in honeybee. We are talking it differently because if we are going to see the sex determination in honeybee, it is showing a haploid diploid mechanism of sex determination. What happens if we are going to check out a beehive of a honey bee? Three different type of bees are surviving there. One is queen bee, the bigger size bee, then worker bee are there, and last one are drones, and these drones are males. The queen bee, the worker bee, they are females, and the drones are males. Now what is the difference between them? Difference in terms of sex determination. The queen bee, out of both these two type of female bees, the queen bee is the fertilized, or you can say fertile bee. Means out of the total beehive, this queen bee is able to produce eggs, or it is taking part in the process of reproduction. The worker bees, they are unfertile bee. They are not taking part in fertilization process. The function is they are going to collect the nectar and they are going to take care of the beehive. The drone bees, the function of these drone bees to fertilize with the queen bee. So they are also taking part in fertilization. Fertilization with queen bee. Now if we talk about their number of chromosomes, queen bee is diploid and the number of chromosomes are 32. And it is diploid. 2n. Worker bee, they are also diploid and the number of chromosomes are 32. But drones, the males are haploid and the number of chromosomes in them are 16 only. That's why I am saying they are showing a haploid diploid mechanism. In the complete beehive, the males are haploid in nature and the females that are being produced are diploid in nature. How this is happening? The males are produced by the process of, or you can say the male gametes are produced here by the process of mitosis. If I talk about a male and a female bee, here 16 number of chromosomes are there because males are haploid in nature. Over here 32 number of chromosomes are there because these are diploid in nature. During gamete formation, in males, gamete formation takes place by the process of mitosis and the sperm that is produced, this sperm is containing again, because this is mitosis, so same number of chromosomes will be inherited in the gamete. So this is the gametes. Here gametes are formed by the process of mitosis and the number of chromosomes that are present in the gametes is 16. While in females, the gametes are formed by the process of meiosis. So if meiosis is taking place, then the number, this is 2n. The number of chromosomes will be reduced. This will be 16 means n and 16. So this is how the number of chromosomes are present in the gametes. Now if fertilization takes place between the male gamete and the female gamete, the result will be formation of a female because their combination is leading to diploid set of chromosomes and it will develop into a female. And but female are of two type in a beehive, that is a queen bee and a worker bee. Now how queen bee is going to separate from the worker bee, that is depending upon the nutritional requirements, the things on which the queen bee is going to feed. But the chromosomes, the number of chromosomes are simply coming by the fusion of male gamete and female gamete. If this egg remains unfertilized, means only 16 number of chromosomes are there, then it is going to develop into a male, and this male will be haploid in nature, and over here fertilization is taking place. That means in honey bee both, some of the eggs they develop by unfertilization and they are going to develop into a male, and if they are involved in the process of fertilization, then females are going to develop. And when these females, they are going to feed on royal jelly, they will behave as queen bee, and all the rest of the females will function as worker bee. This is how sex determination takes place in honeybees. So that was all about sex determination. The next topic of this chapter is variations. So today we are going to talk about variations and mutations. First, let's talk about variations. In our 10th class, previous classes also, we talked about variations. These variations are changes that are coming generation after generation. If we see a member of a single species, all the member of a single species are not looking identical to each other. There are always difference in their characters. If we see a parent, a couple, the children of a parent, single parents, are also different from each other, and the reason behind this is variations. And these variations, they are the raw materials for the process of evolution. These changes are going to come generation after generation, and because of the accumulation of these changes for lakhs of years, it is leading to the formation of new species, and this is we are going to call evolution. So what happens in variations? We will talk about different methods that are going to take part in variations. First, let's talk about types of variations. Types of variations. Variations are of two types depending upon in body which type of cells are having these variations. Somatic variations, as the name is saying, if the variations are going to take place in somatic cells of our body, those type of variations are known as somatic variations. The second one is germinal variations or germline variations. The variations that are going to take place inside the germ cells, the reproductive cells of our body, will be the germline variations. So they are going to take place in somatic cells and germline cells. So these are two type of variations. Let's talk about them one by one. When we say somatic variations, most of our all body cells, our hand cells, eye, face cells, other organs, they are somatic cells, made up of somatic cells of our body. So when variations are going to take place in these cells, these variations are not going to inherit. So these are not inheritable. Generation after generation. These are coming in a individual, and when the individual is going to die, these variations will be removed with the death of the individual. The individual is not able to pass on these variations to its next generation. The reasons for these somatic variations can be the environment in which the individual is surviving, In environment, we are going to include everything in which the individual is coming in contact with. It can be light, the lifestyle the individual is having, shelter, home, food, nourishment he is taking, everything is going to come in the environment. So environment is playing a major role in the process of variations. The second is use and disuse of organs. What does use and disuse of organs means? It means when we are continuously using a organ from a long period of time, these organs which we are continuously using, they will be more specialized, or you can say more modifications are going to take place in those organs. So if use of organ is going to take place, more modifications are present in those organs. And when we are disusing, we stop using our organ, the size of the organ is going to reduce. Size is reduced. And in some cases, evolution is going to completely remove them from the body. So this is use and disuse of organs. That is also leading to the process of variations. Now, by using this use and disuse study, there was a scientist named Lamarck who said that the somatic variations, or you can say acquired variations, because these variations are acquired by an organism in its lifetime. So these variations are going to be inherited from one generation to next generation. And from here, he proposed a theory of acquired characters. Or it is also said that theory of use and disuse of organs. So according to Lamarck, it is also known as Lamarckism, that the acquired characters are going to inherit from one generation to next generation. But later on, one scientist, Weizmann, came and he disapproved the theory of Lamarck, and he gave his theory of germplasm. We have already discussed about the theory of germplasm. There are some of the conscious efforts also that are done by human beings. Like we are cutting our nails. In cattle also, the horn are being removed during the lifetime of the cattle, but later on when next generation is coming, again the horn are visible. So these are the things which human beings are continuously doing in their lifestyle also, plus in other organisms that are living in their vicinity. But these characters are repeated in the next generation. That simply means that these variations are not going to inherit in the next generation. So here the theory of acquired characters was disapproved. The next type is germline variations. Means the variations are taking place in the reproductive cells. These reproductive cells are going to perform the process of meiosis, and after meiosis, gametes are formed. That means from these cells the variations are going to inherit in the gametes. And when gametes, male gametes and female gametes are going to fuse, these variations are going to accumulate in the next generation. So all the germline variations are heritable. They are going to transfer from one generation to next generation. Now these germline variations, they are of two types: continuous germline variations, and the second one is discontinuous germline variations. Both are taking place in germline variation, still they are different from each other. How we can distinguish them? We can distinguish them on the basis of phenotype they are going to produce. The changes that are coming during variation, these changes are leading to also change in the phenotype. We are going to see a certain type of changes in the population. So on the basis of changes which are visible in the population, they are divided in continuous and discontinuous germline variations. Now what continuous germline variation means? Continuous means this is including characters which are showing wide range of phenotypes. So for example, in some of the situations I talked about human skin color, means more than one gene is going to control the skin color of human beings. This is, we can call a continuous germline variation, or we can say height. The factor of height, skin color, hair color. These are the examples of continuous germline variations. Because if you are going to see the phenotype, you are not going to get only two contrasting phenotypes. There will be a range of phenotypes and the intermediate. If you draw a graph for a continuous germline variation, this graph is going to become in form of a bell-shaped graph. That means, suppose height is there, I am taking 5, 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3. So here 6, 6, 1. You are getting a range of phenotypes. The individuals are lying in each category, in each height group. The intermediate will be the maximum number of, average number is the maximum that is going to appear in a population. And when you are going to right or left side, the number is decreasing, but here also you will get some of the individuals in this category also, in this category also. So there will be a continuous range. No two distinct characters will be seen. Such type of variations are known as continuous germline variations, and it is always going to give a bell-shaped graph. And which type of germline variations are going to show continuous variations? The characters which are being controlled by more than one genes. That means the quantitative traits. We talked about it earlier also. The quantitative traits are going to show this continuous germline variations. And on the basis of this continuous germline variations, Darwin gave a theory, that is theory of natural selection. We are going to discuss theory of natural selection in the chapter evolution later on. So that was the basis of Darwin's theory of natural selection, was continuous germline variations. The second one is discontinuous germline variation. Discontinuous is different from continuous simply on the basis that here we are going to get two different phenotypes. Means contrasting phenotypes are there. The offsprings are not between the, or they are not intermediate between the parents. That is discontinuous. In human skin color, what we were saying, if there is a completely black parent and one is a pure white parent, then the skin color of the individual, the progeny, is medium. That was a mulatto. This was the situation in skin color. This is that the children, the progeny, the offspring is coming intermediate between the parents. This is not the case with discontinuous variations. The offspring, the progeny is not going to be an intermediate of the parents. There is a altogether different trait that will be shown by the progeny. It is not going to resemble, it may not going to resemble with any of the parents. And this discontinuous variation, this drastic change is coming from the mutation. A bit later we are going to discuss about mutation. So discontinuous variation is coming because of mutation, a drastic change that is different from both of the parents. There is no range of phenotypes visible over here. Using this mutation, this concept of mutation, Hugo de Vries gave theory of mutation. We are going to discuss what is mutation and what are the different type of mutations, also the reason for mutation. So discontinuous germline variation led to theory of mutation that was given by Hugo de Vries. So let's discuss about mutation. What do we understand by mutation? Mutation simply means any sudden drastic change in the segment of DNA. So it is sudden drastic change in DNA segment. And this sudden drastic change is going to give altogether a different phenotype. Now the mutation, again, just like variations, the mutation can occur in a somatic cell also and in germline cell also. So mutation is again of two types: somatic cell mutations. Somatic mutations means the mutations that are going to take place in somatic cells of our body, which is again not going to be inherited, and the germline mutations, which are going to take place in the reproductive cells of our body, and they will be inheritable. Now, one more thing about mutation is this mutation, sometimes it is going to take place in a very small segment of the DNA, or sometime it is going to take place in a big chromosomal segment or between two chromosomes also. So from very small mutation, this mutation can be very big. There is also a different type of variations. Mutations. If we are considering a mutation that is taking place on chromosomal behalf, means a bigger chromosomal section is involved in the mutation, then we are going to call it a chromosomal mutation. We are knowing this. This is how the chromosomes are present, and on these chromosomes genes are present. If more than one or two genes are involved in the process of mutation, it is chromosomal mutation. The second can be gene mutation. It simply means only single gene that is present on the chromosome is mutated. So gene mutation means mutation is taking place in one single gene, and chromosomal mutation is more than one genes are involved in the process of mutation. So we will discuss both chromosomal mutations and gene mutations. First, let's take chromosomal mutations. Now chromosomal mutations can be divided into two categories, means if only one chromosome is going to be involved or more than one chromosome is involved in the process of mutation. So that can be intrachromosomal mutations. It can also be known as chromosomal aberrations. Intrachromosomal mutation simply means that mutation is going to take place in one single chromosome. That is intrachromosomal mutation. The second will be interchromosomal mutation. Interchromosomal chromosomal mutation means two chromosomes, between two chromosomes, the mutation is going to take place between two chromosomes. Let's see what these mutations means and what type of changes these are leading to the genes and chromosomes. So first let's see the intrachromosomal mutations. Here only one chromosome is involved. If we talk about intrachromosomal mutation, the first that is coming is deletion. What deletion means? Deletion simply means that some segment of the chromosome has been deleted and the size of chromosome has reduced. Suppose we are considering here some of the genes, say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. In deletion, it can be at two positions. It can be terminal. If terminal part of the chromosome is involved, or it can be intercalary when intermediate part of the chromosome is involved. Suppose I am taking a terminal portion, this part of chromosome is deleted. So what happens? Now the chromosome is small in size. The genes that are left are gene A and B has been removed. So this is deletion. What is the effect of deletion? The genes are lost and the size of chromosome has reduced. This is how deletion is taking place. The second one is inversion. What is happening in inversion? Again, we are going to see with the help of a diagram. We are considering a chromosome. We are numbering, naming the genes with the help of alphabets. Here what happens? Some section of chromosome will be removed, cut off, and it is again going to join on the same chromosome, but now it is joining in an inverted position, means the sequence of chromosomes has been inverted. For example, if this segment of chromosome is getting removed and it is joining again on the chromosome, and the result is the size of the chromosome is still as such, because the number of chromosomes are not reduced, but inversion has taken place. This is D, this is C, and this is B. You can see the sequence of genes. Here the sequence of gene was B, C, D, and here the sequence is D, C, B. So this segment cut off, it again joined with the same chromosome but in an inverted situation. This is known as inversion. Now this inversion can be of two types. It can be pericentric inversion. Pericentric inversion simply means if inversion is taking place in the region where centromere is also involved. Suppose this is the situation. If inversion is going to take place in this region, then the situation will be F is going to come here and E is going to come here. So this is a pericentric inversion in which centromere is involved. Another one is paracentric inversion. Just I have shown you above, means where centromere is not involved. So this is how inversion is going to take place. These are intrachromosomal mutations. The next is interchromosomal, between two chromosomes. So the second one is interchromosomal mutations in which two chromosomes are involved. Now when we are talking about two chromosomes, these two chromosomes can be homologous chromosomes or they can be non-homologous chromosomes. Both these type of chromosomes are involved in interchromosomal mutations. The first type of interchromosomal mutation is translocation. Translocation simply means one segment of chromosome is going to be removed and it is going to translocate on the another chromosome. It can be a non-homologous chromosome also. So what happens? The chromosome from where the segment is removed, deletion of that chromosome is going to take place. There will be reduction in size, and the another chromosome there will be addition. This is one chromosome. Here genes are present. This is another chromosome. Here also gene segments are present. The translocation can be a reciprocal translocation also. This simply means to differentiate the genes. I am making a difference. This segment of chromosome is going to add on this chromosome and this is going to add on this chromosome. There is equal transfer of segments of chromosomes and the result will be, here we are getting A dash, B dash, C, D. The rest of the genes will be same, and on this chromosome we are going to get A, B, C and D. C dash, D dash. This is how translocation is taking place. Now this is reciprocal. Equal amount of segment is transferring here and same over here. This might not be the case. There can be unequal translocation also. The second one is duplication. Duplication means on one chromosome the number of chromosomes will be double, and on the second chromosome the number of chromosomes are going to reduce. These are the genes that are present. Over other chromosome also these genes are present. If duplication is taking place because of, we know in crossing over exchange of segments are taking place. So because of unequal exchange of chromosomal segments, one chromosome is going to receive extra segment. So the length of that chromosome is going to increase, and the second chromosome is having less genes, so less chromosomal segment, so length is going to reduce. Here C, D, E is present, and over here this extra again A, B, C, D. So this extra chromosomal segment has been added, which has led to duplication of chromosomes. So this is how they are going to take place between chromosomes. This is chromosomal aberrations in which chromosomal segments are affected. These chromosomal aberrations, because they are large in size, they are taking more space, they can be easily seen with the help of microscope also when their various aberrations are studied. The second type are gene mutations. They are taking place at the gene level. If you remember, I want to discuss or a quick revision of some of the basic things about DNA. We know DNA is made up of nitrogenous bases There are two categories, purines and pyrimidines. Adenine and guanine, cytosine and thymine. If we talk about pairing over here, adenine is going to pair with thymine with 2 hydrogen bonds, and cytosine is going to pair with guanine with 3 hydrogen bonds. This is how pairing is taking place. Why I am explaining this? Because we are going to use this in gene mutations. Now, these nitrogenous bases, they are present on the DNA and they are carrying the information for protein synthesis. For protein synthesis, the mRNA is having information in form of codons like this. Suppose A, T, C, G, C, T, A. It is repeated. Then how protein synthesis is going to take place? These that are the nitrogenous bases that are present on the mRNA, they are known as codons. One codon is made by 3 nitrogenous bases. So one codon is equal to 3 nitrogenous bases. Now the second codon will be again by next 3. This is the first, this is the second, this is the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. This is how, means one codon means this is going to code for one specific amino acid. Let me repeat it again. We are having a mRNA, messenger RNA, and on the messenger RNA, nitrogenous bases are present in a linear order. Because this is a messenger RNA, so let me write uracil in place of thymine. Because in RNA, uracil is present instead of thymine. So this is how the nitrogenous bases are present. Now these nitrogenous bases are going to code for amino acid. By using the information they are having, proteins are synthesized. And we know proteins are made of amino acids. So how amino acids are coded? These nitrogenous bases functions as a unit. 3 nitrogenous bases are going to function as one single unit, and that single unit is known as a codon. And one codon is specific for one amino acid. So, gene mutation means one gene is involved. The mutation is going to take place in one gene. Now, the smallest unit of gene mutation is one nitrogenous base, because gene is made up of very small units, that is nitrogenous base. So, that is known as muton. So, muton is the smallest unit of mutation in a gene, and the smallest unit of mutation in a gene will be nitrogenous base, because that is the smallest unit of a gene. Now the mutation that is going to take place, it can be of different types. The first type is substitution mutations. We are going to discuss about 3 different types. First is substitution mutations. Substitution mutations simply means one nitrogenous base is going to replace the another one. Simply, again in substitution mutation we are having 2 types. Transition. Transition simply means if a purine is there, that purine is replaced by another purine. Simply, if in a segment we are having A, this A will be replaced by a G. So, a purine is going to replace another purine, that is transition. The second substitution is a transversion. Transversion means one pyrimidine is going to, here the another situation can be a pyrimidine is going to replace another pyrimidine, means a cytosine is going to replace thymine or a thymine is going to replace cytosine. Transversion means here a purine will be replaced by pyrimidine or pyrimidine will be replaced by a purine. So purine can be replaced by a pyrimidine or vice versa. This is a transversion. If we talk about their effect, the effect of transversion will be more as compared to transition, because here purine is being replaced by purine, but here altogether a purine is replaced by a pyrimidine. That's why it is showing more effect as compared to the transition. Now the second type of gene mutation is deletion. Deletion simply means that one nitrogenous base or more than one nitrogenous base is deleted. One or more than one nitrogenous base is deleted. That is again going to affect the protein that is formed in by the gene. And the third one is insertion. Means again one or more than one nitrogenous base is inserted. That is again going to affect the function of a gene. Let's see how. This can be easily explained by a frame shift mutation. Let's see what happens in frame shift mutation. Both deletion and insertion can be reason of frame shift mutation. Let's take a simple thing. This is the mRNA. This mRNA is having nitrogenous bases. This is the sequence that is present on the mRNA. I said they are behaving as a codon. So on this sequence, 3 codons are present. The first codon, the second codon and the third codon. So the sequence is this. This is going to code for one specific amino acid. The second is going to code for second amino acid and the third is going to code for third amino acid. Let's just write down any of the amino acid, just a sequence. Say there is serine, coming from here, methionine and lysine. If this is the mRNA sequence, this is the protein sequence we are getting. This is in normal situation. If deletion takes place, deletion of one nitrogenous base, if deletion of one nitrogenous base is going to take place, suppose now the situation is A is there, but from here U has been removed. The situation is now C is going to come here. A, U, G, C, A, G. Now let's see what is the difference that is going to come in the codon. Now this will be first codon, this will be the second codon, and here one more nitrogenous base is required to complete this codon. Earlier we were having AUC that was coding for serine, but now the codon has completely changed. ACA. Maybe it is going to code for another amino acid. You can say phenylalanine. Again this has changed. Histidine, threonine. So all together the sequence of protein, the amino acid chain has completely changed because of deletion. And the same situation you can expect in insertion also. This is known as frame shift. Why frame shift? because of the removal of one single nitrogenous base, the complete frame has changed. You can see this and this difference. Here, the complete sequence of codon has changed. This is known as frame shift mutation. That can be because of deletion or insertion. If three nitrogenous bases are altogether deleted, if suppose this is completely going to be removed, the frame is not going to change. Again, this will be the first codon, this will be the second codon. Only the number is changed, but the frame has not shifted. But if two or one nitrogenous base will be added or deleted out, then it is leading to the frame shift changes, frame shift mutation. Now the new protein that is formed after the frame shift may be non-functional, or it may be abnormally functioning, abnormal, and it is going to affect the survival of the cell. Any of the possibility can be there. So these are some of the gene mutations. Now these frame shifts or gene mutations, they can also lead to various changes. We are going to discuss the second part of mutations in our next class.